Growing up, I was baptized in the Presbyterian Church. My parents never really encouraged my brother or I to have a direct relationship with God, and we didn't attend church regularly. It wasn't that they were atheists, they just didn't believe that we needed to attend church to believe in God. When I met my husband, Brandon, I learned that he grew up in the Catholic Church, and I was very fascinated with the Catholic faith, especially witnessing my mother-in-law and my sister-in-law so connected to Jesus and had such a loving relationship with Jesus and Mary. And so I, again, felt the Holy Spirit, I guess, if you will, and felt very drawn, but I still didn't know what to do with that. Eventually, Brandon and I got married, and we had our first daughter, Isabel, or Izzy, and I knew, and in discussions with Brandon, we both knew that it was very important for us to raise our children in the church, and I wanted them to have the experience and the opportunity to have a relationship with Jesus that I didn't necessarily have. So we had both of our girls baptized. They were baptized in a Presbyterian church, and we became very connected in the non-denominational church setting. At the end of Izzy's 8th grade year, she had been part of the St. James community. She was playing lacrosse, and she met a lot of friends there and asked if she could shadow and consider going to St. James Academy for high school. That's not something that we were necessarily planning, but again, we were open to that. She did go and shadow, and when I picked her up, she came and told me she was very excited about the fact that she walked through the school and the sanctuary was in the middle and she could look up and see Jesus on the cross, and it gave her a lot of comfort. And when she said that, I thought, how can I say no to that? Like I just felt, again, very drawn. So we met with the president of St. James Academy, and I will never forget, and I can remember this very clearly. He said, our mission is to ensure that all of our kids get to heaven. And so I raised my hand and I said, this is something that we need to do. And my husband felt the same way, so she ended up going to St. James Academy. So on August 19th of 2021, Izzy was involved in a fatal car accident. Our world came to an abrupt standstill. And there were a lot of things that I remember very clearly, and there's a lot of things that I cannot recall, but I remember very vividly that the St. James community just surrounded us with so much love and prayer and just community, and it was just right from the beginning all throughout. There were students gathering at other parishes in adoration. I was receiving calls, letters from people that I knew and that I didn't know, and just the comfort of knowing that complete strangers were praying for us. I mean, I don't know that there was any way that we were going to be able to get through that. St. James hosted Izzy's beautiful vigil. It was decorated, and there were so many students and people, and it was just, you could really sense that God was present. St. James even encouraged the students, the staff, to attend Izzy's funeral so that kids they didn't have to go to school. I mean, the church, our church, hosted Izzy's funeral, and it was also so beautiful, and we felt loved and prayed for there as well. As you can imagine, our faith was shaken to its core. At the same time, and very strangely, I could feel that the Holy Spirit was surrounding us and that God was carrying us through all of it. I felt an overwhelming sense of confidence that He was not going to leave me, and I also felt an overwhelming sense of surrender. I knew that this was something that was so big and so heavy that I couldn't carry it on my own. I had to give it to Him. As I continued to grow in my grief, and despite my questions and doubts, I did continue to seek God. I would go to church and I would try and find connection with the messages, but I had so many questions, and I would vacillate between, doubting God's presence and being grateful of His presence, all the in-between. And I would try and connect with groups in our church. I would desperately try to connect with the music, with other volunteer groups, just to try and feel that sense of connection. And while I was struggling, St. James and the community, their community, was surrounding me and continuing to help carry me forward. I was finding it very difficult to listen to the messages because I felt like there weren't many conversations or messages regarding deep loss and death, and that was what I was needing. I was needing to hear some sort of message in our Sunday services that would make me feel like it was going to be okay. As I mentioned, my husband was raised in the Catholic Church, and with all of the support that we had been receiving within the St. James community and the Catholic community, it was no surprise that I had told him several times throughout the first several years after Izzy's passing that I felt like I wanted to join the Catholic Church. I was just so drawn to the community and all that they supported and all that they believed in. It was no surprise that in the early fall of 2024, I told my husband I felt like I was ready, but I had no idea where to start. So I started reaching out to some friends that I knew attended Sacred Heart Catholic Church, and they immediately connected me with Shar. Because I longed for that sense of community, and because I was drawn very much to Mary and her suffering with the death of her son Jesus and her commitment to God through all of her pain, I believe that that was a major draw for me into the Catholic Church. As I entered OCIA and I started learning more about the Catholic faith, I felt extremely comforted with the belief with the saints and believing that my daughter in heaven was a saint, that she could intercede in prayer for me, for our family.
My community in heaven grew exponentially, and I knew that and loved that with every Mass we prayed for the departed and that we honored those who had gone before us. One of my favorite things about Mass is that I can be transported back 2,000 years and close my eyes and envision sitting at God's holy table in the Last Supper, and then I can go and I can receive the Eucharist in the form of His body and His blood. And when I do that, it's like a breath of fresh air for me. It's been comforting to me to be able to attend Mass and go to church more than just a Sunday. I can go to daily Mass where I can receive the Eucharist. I can participate in reconciliation and feel cleansed and, constantly asking for God's forgiveness. I have come to know Jesus on a much deeper level through the OCIA process. I was seeking Jesus and a deeper relationship with Him, and this is where He led me. The distance between heaven and earth became much shorter, and I truly believe that the veil is very thin. I am able to see the seeds that were planted, that He planted intentionally before my daughter's passing, knowing what we were going to need. And I can still see Him planting seeds now. He is constantly moving. And I invite anyone, especially those who are experiencing deep loss, to come with all of your questions, with your doubts, and just explore where the Catholic faith may take you.